Irashaimase! Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this Saturday we have Elysion, a new 2D anime girl shooter on Steam. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. Elysion, from developer Ronin Games, released in early November 2019 on Steam. So this is a title that I like, but admittedly I have a little bit of a hard time recommending for one primary reason. I'll get to that in just a second. However, if you're interested in checking out the title, it does have a demo available. I'll include a link to the Steam page in the description below. I'd highly encourage you to check that out if you like what you see here. So first and foremost, this game does have an anime girl aesthetic. So if you're not a fan of that, then well, I can outright rule out the game for you at that point. But if you're alright with that aesthetic, or if you like with that aesthetic, then we'll dive in a little bit further. There aren't a whole lot of options here, so that you don't have much in the way of customizability as far as graphics are concerned. And as far as game modes, there's only really just the one game mode as well. As we start the game, this is one of those areas where I can say the game itself feels like it's maybe half of the game that it's supposed to be. So the title of the game is Elysion. When you start the game, you're taken to this player select. Why have a player select when you only have a single character, Shion, whose name happens to be half of Elysion? There's also another character, Erisu, who happens to be the character in blue that was on the right of the title screen. So it feels like she's supposed to be a selectable character as well, but at this point in time she's not. It does appear that they have future plans for the game, so hopefully that continues and we'll see more from this title in the future. So it does give us a quick rundown of her character performance, but it's probably easiest just to show you in game. So after you select your character, you're taken to the game difficulty. As usual, we'll just play on easy, so I have an easier time showing you the game and still being able to not butcher it. There is quite a bit of story in the game, as it is story driven, but we'll be skipping over those cutscenes just for the sake of time. So Elysion is your standard bullet hell horizontal scrolling shoot 'em up. You have the ability to move around and fire. And as far as the fire is concerned, we just have the one firing, or rather the one weapon. But we do have a couple modes. So there's the standard mode, and then we also have the focused fire mode, or the slow movement mode, as it's said in the manual. So in standard mode, we're firing with just the one weapon itself, the machine gun. But when you focus fire, you're firing with all the weapons combined. So Shion is also equipped with a Gatling gun in addition to her machine gun, so you get quite a bit more firepower when you're using the focus mode. In addition to that, I just love that UI that surrounds you when you're in this mode. You can see your HP, the number of bombs you have left. It has a hitbox indicator, which is something that I feel is just a must in the bullet hell. So definitely huge kudos from me on that. So as far as scoring is concerned, as that's usually a rather big part of a bullet hell. So as you defeat enemies, they'll drop these point power-ups, and there are also a few different colored enemies that will drop other power-ups as well. There's also points for grazing enemy bullets. If you're grazing within a relative range of your core, then you'll get bonus points for those bullets that you graze. And that's it for the scoring. The other power-ups that we can potentially pick up. So there's yellow enemies that if we destroy, we get yellow power-ups, which increase our total bomb count. There are red power-ups, which give us options. We do lose those options, however, if we take hits. So you have to be careful of that. Those options will fire homing missiles, providing a little bit of extra firepower. Very, very welcome. So I just lost an option there, actually both of them. And then there are green enemies that you can destroy for green power-ups, which restore our health. So here we are, already well into the boss fight of the first stage. This is Rudy here. So she's kind of a good introductory boss. She has a total of 3 life bars. You can see the various life bars indicated under her name there in the top right corner. And the actual life bar that we're currently working on the right side of the screen. There's also a timer there, but unless you're at a higher difficulty, on the earlier difficulties, it's not going to be a problem taking out the bosses in the time provided, especially if we happen to use the bomb, or the other form of attack that I haven't shown. So we'll wait till she comes back in after these 2 dives to show that off. Now, so when you activate your bomb, you get a nice quick little bit of fan service there. It does clear the enemy's screen of bullets, keeps bullets from appearing for a moment, and oops, I didn't mean to fire off a second bomb. And is a full barrage from all of Shion's weapons that will make short work of the enemies and the bosses in particular. Once you complete the stages, you're given a score, or rather a grade, based on how you did. So, like, no bomb bonus. That's basically for how many bombs we had remaining, not necessarily not using them, how much HP we had, kill rate, and so on and so forth. So, that's basically what we have here for Elysion. So, another important mechanic to note is, well, one thing that I'm taking advantage of here is if you are moving around firing in either standard or focus mode, then you release your fire mode, you'll vacuum in all the power-ups and point pickups that happen to be on the screen. So what I wanted to talk about, though, is the way that the damage works. So the further back you are from the enemy, the less damage your shots will do. So you actually want to be as close to an enemy as you can conceivably get. You'll get additional points for both grazing their bullets, and you'll also be able to take them out much faster as you'll be dealing significantly more damage, at least as far as the bosses are concerned. So, just a little bit to note there. So, that's basically Elysion served up for your enjoyment. As far as minus flavors are concerned, so I do have a minor gripe as far as differences in speed. So I love the way that the focus movement works, but when you're going from focus to suddenly being out of focus mode, the differences in speed is almost too extreme. I kind of wish Shion's normal speed was just a little bit slower. Then the game itself is a little short. It's only 6 stages, and it's a little too easy compared to your standard bullet hell. Part of that is due to the fact that instead of one-up system, it has a life bar system, and they're relatively generous with even the life refills. And then there's the problem of only having a single character to select. That really reduces the replayability in the title itself. If there were more characters, I feel that there would be a lot more replayability and more value to the game itself. That said, at least for myself, I really did enjoy the time I spent with the game. Playing through it was more than enough to justify the cost of it, to me at the very least. But like I said, if you're uncertain if that would be the case for you, you can try out the demo and see what you think of it. But as far as the plus flavors are concerned, so I love the way this game handles its slow movement or focus movement, depending on how you want to call it. So you've got that great little UI around the character showing your health and the bomb. And as we're fighting a boss as well, there's also an arrow indicating where the boss happens to be. So you can focus on your character and dodging the bullets and still know where the boss is, so you can know if you're being effective against them or not. And also having a hitbox indicator is just something that I really, really appreciate in a bullet hell, whether or not it has like a focus movement. Then the boss fights I really enjoy. They all have some unique different patterns that I think are pretty neat. Like the second boss fight here against Hudi. It's really neat to see some of the attacks she has, like these bursts that you have to be really careful of. There are a lot of situations where she can kind of like pin you in parts of the screen, and then you'll be able to take damage and you just can't avoid it. So I think that's great. And then there's also the cute animation for the chibis of the characters themselves, and the character designs aren't like half bad either. So there you have it. This is a title that is hard to give a recommendation on just based off the fact that it feels a little incomplete. So maybe it's one to wait for a sale on, or to keep an eye on and see if and when they are able to add more to the game itself. Alright, that'll just about wrap it up for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for coming out and joining me this week, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.